Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video about values and kind of breaking down the myths surrounding chasing values and holding them so rigidly, why your values don't need to change, the misconceptions about losing one's values. The values I hold today are the same values I held before OCD, some of them, not all of them, because I had a lot of bad behaviors, but a lot of the core of those values are ones that I hold which are personal to me. I don't compare those. There's that famous quote that says comparison is the thief of joy. And I like to say if that quote had a twin brother, it would be expectations are the thief of joy as well, because the expectations will hold a lot of us back. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Look for that link right away with Phil. We can get you messaged in, booked in, kind of that intro session or talk with Phil that he does. And then we have the webinars. And then we'll be experimenting with smaller groups here soon. So we're going to try a couple different things over the next probably 6 to 12 months. Just different variations of value systems to help people recover from OCD, plus constantly uploading free content, et cetera, et cetera. So when you look at the problem with values, so when people say there's a universal value of being a good person, well, we know that that's not actually true, because this is great. I actually didn't even plan this, but I have this book here I'm reading called The Anatomy of Evil. I'm about halfway through. Now, obviously, evil doesn't exist. Evil is a perception. It's a word that we use to put constraints on things that people do. Humans are just humans. Some people commit acts that are heinous and horrendous, but it doesn't take away their value as being a human. That's a very difficult concept. If you don't, in my opinion, if you don't operate like that, the best example of that is when Gary Ridgway was convicted in court, the Green River Killer. One of the individual fathers who he murdered his daughter, he forgave him because of his beliefs in religion in Christ. And he did that, because he probably knew it would tear him up inside, but he didn't agree with what Gary Ridgway did. And that's the true definition of acceptance doesn't mean agreement. And most people operate off acceptance means agreement. A basic example is, are you a skier? Oh, I'm a snowboarder. You're an idiot. Vice versa. Oh, you're a rollerblader. I'm a skateboarder. You're an idiot. This is where religions fight. This is where individual political spheres fight. Or you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, blah, blah, blah. People very much are accustomed from a young age and reared toward that from societal thinking, culturally, probably some economics involved in there, and genetics as well over the years and going over and over. It's why when people ask me, why do I react this way? I'm like, well, if you look at the limbic system and the emotional areas of the brain that detect fear, they're very primitive and they've been there for probably 220,000 years or whatever it is. And the prefrontal cortex is quite new, but we don't go into the neurologies because it doesn't really matter. So we could say that my value is to live in accordance with good actions, but it would be irrational. And I know it's hard when we use the word irrational, people get very offended by that because they're like, you're telling me I'm irrational. No, but if I sit down and explain to you why the purpose in life is to be a good person, well, that can't be the truth because people don't act in good ways. Hence this book right here. I don't agree with a lot of the things that people have done in this book, but I accept them from what they are. Now, that's never affected me personally, but I've had plenty of situations in my life where I've had to say, this person has a different value structure than mine. That's the way it is. I believe in atheistic principles. I don't believe in any afterlife whatsoever. I believe when you die, I believe that this world is primarily meaningless. That's a belief that I have. The reason why we act probably in good ways because it feels good because of underlying subconscious belief systems and actions to help an old lady across the street and to push her into traffic. That makes you feel good for most people. Which people can chase good deeds. We definitely could go into that for a while as well. Those are just theories, by the way. I have nothing to substantiate that, but more than likely, I think that's probably what it is. And this is why people go so much after the values with, and again, this is not a right or wrong thing with Christianity, Catholicism, the Muslim culture, because I work all over the Middle East, right? I work all over, Pakistan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all over there. Brunei I've worked with. Just different Muslim cultures. And the thing is, people feel very lost without a personal meaning or personal purpose to go forward in life. That isn't the problem. The problem is the rigidity of that. So and again, this is not stuff I usually talk about in videos. We usually wait till one-to-ones. But if we take it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there are close down to 2 billion Muslims on earth. And then there are 16 to 20 million Jews, I believe. I think it's somewhere in that. If you were to sit them down and have a conversation about who's right, who's wrong, their beliefs are similar. in many ways. It's just that if an individual goes, I know I'm right and you're wrong, versus I know I'm right, you're wrong, that's where problems arise. It's the rigidity in the belief and how you hold it. There's nothing wrong with any belief. I mean, the belief is never the problem. I use an example such as, if you have a belief such as, I really don't like to be cut off in traffic, but people are going to cut me off. It's not the end of the world. Or if you have a belief that says, no one can cut me off in traffic. If they do cut me off, I'm going to show that motherfucker who's right and chase them and act like I'm like in a maniac behavioral way, like I used to do. And really struggle with that from the road rage perspective because of the strong conditional other acceptance beliefs. Those beliefs are actually one and the same. One is just held in a much more rigid fashion. So the value, to go back to the very purpose of the value, is never the problem. It's the rigidity of the value. And people are afraid of that because they go, well, does that mean I'm going to lose my faith? There's a reason why I'm talking about religion so much in here. Am I going to lose my faith? Absolutely not. I believe in atheistic principles just as much as someone I work with who believes in Christian principles or Catholicism or the Muslim culture or spirituality or multiple gods. That's what makes life unique. And having the open-mindedness to hear other people is what creates dialogue, which is hard because there is a vulnerability aspect of that, of thinking that I could be wrong, which I do believe most people in religion have had that thought, which is a total naturally occurring thought. OCD or not, right? People are just, it's the biggest unknown. What happens after I die? When you hear people say, I know for a fact what happens after I die, but you don't. You don't know what happens after you die. I know more than I don't know. Well, they say to me, well, you're an atheist. So how do you live by principles that are aligned with mine? So I was talk to many people in all religions, but let's say I was sitting down with a Christian individual and we were looking at the values that I like to live by. And I was act in good manner, help thy neighbor, and all maybe the principles from the Newer Testament, not so much the Older Testament. I'm no theology expert. I am going to get around to listening or reading the Bible and probably the Quran as well, because I think those are great works of art, if art is the correct word to use. Great scripts. They've been around for thousands of years. I think it's worth taking a look at. I get that from Jim Rohn. I think that's very important. So when I look at those, the only difference is that I don't believe in an afterlife. And that's the difference with values based around religion. People think if you don't have, say, a religious value system, that you just are some hedonistic, short-term, instant gratification, maniac, psychopath, murderer. That's not true whatsoever. I think I act in good behaviors, but I'm a human and I'll make mistakes. I've done things in my life I don't do regret. My beliefs are very sound in that, but there are things I would, if I could have changed, it would be nice to change, but I can't change them. And I try to learn from them. The past is dead, and all you have, and not in the sense of you can ruminate on the past, obsess, but like the ability to go back and change the past is dead. So the values that you hold now are what's dictating you going forward, and your beliefs about the past, although you can't change those. And then we can go into the free will conversation, which is one of my favorite conversations. The best way, if someone says, do you like pizza? And I say, yes. Excuse me, did I say that because of my free will or because of my synapses in my brain shooting out the experiences from pizza? Yeah, and it's probably a combination of both. Very, very trippy stuff. Cool stuff to talk about if the individual is open-minded. So my values specifically, these are the ones that I like. Work very hard. Work harder than most people. Try your best to be consistent. Have rigid, like not rigid in the sense of the OCD sense, but have good regimented habits, but you could sway them when needed as things go wrong. If I was to break my leg in a car accident tomorrow, it's going to mess my habits up for a while. I don't think I would spiral like I used to because I've accepted that reality. Same with vacations and traveling, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a good value I have. Putting the benefits of my relationship as a whole over me as a human. Now, I'm not anti-selfishness. Getting better from recovery takes a large amount of selfishness to change your beliefs. Being selfish is a complete natural and necessary part of life. Drinking water is an act of selfishness to keep yourself alive. It just takes time to see it from that perspective. So there's no such thing as being selfless, just like there's no such thing as being a self-made man or woman. People have helped you get to where you are, etc. Another value I have is health. I train very hard. I exercise. I go outside. I do all those things. That's a value system I like, but that value can be taken away from me in a moment's notice. I value camaraderie and friendship. I would say my values are very similar to most people or most people. No matter where you go to anywhere in the world. I work all over the world. Like I said, there's not many countries I haven't, not mainstream ones I haven't worked with. I've worked, throughout areas of South Africa, I've worked all over the EU, like I said, the Middle East, Asia, all over America, Canada, etc. Most people are most people, but we have outliers, and that's what that is. I mean, it's just the reality of it. So, like if you take someone, and this is very triggering for people to hear, you take someone who doesn't have the same values as you. Maybe they commit multiple acts of murder for their own designated purpose. Who am I to say that that person is incorrect? I think it doesn't better society forward, and I would very much like it if people did not murder each other, but I'm pretty confident I could sit down with any person on this planet and have a conversation, whether I agree with them or not, and try to understand where they're coming from. It's like when you see people, we title videos monsters, the monsters. This person's an evil monster. The anatomy of evil. You know, it's very easy to go down that route. We categorize people, et cetera, et cetera. I know people say in the interviews, why would you do that? Well, they have a different brain structure and they think differently than you. And they have different beliefs and different reasons for doing what they do, whether you agree with them or not. I have done things that many of my friends have not done. I've cheated numerous times in my life on every relationship, including Erica. Why did I do that? Low frustration tolerance, lack of good value systems, not learning from my mistakes, all the stuff. But I haven't in 2 years, so I'm happy with that. Recovery from all this stuff, adult websites, all that stuff. So some people could never see how I could openly, you should be ashamed of yourself. Why? Chronic shame and guilt don't solve problems. Healthy dosages of guilt actually help you change. So again, the value, you don't need to lose your values. It's the rigidity. Because what happens is if you go, my values being a good Christian mom, these are the values I have. I want to be a good Muslim wife, a good Catholic husband. These are the things. That's not the problem. The problem is you going, if I go against this, my life, my worldview is completely ruined. And again, on face value, it seems very scary because you're operating strictly of acceptance doesn't mean agreement. Some of the biggest minds out there, again, just, you know, I very much respect Jordan Peterson in many ways. He wouldn't agree with me. If me and Jordan Peterson sat down for 5 hours with Rob, he would not agree with most things we say. He's a different worldview than us. Completely fine. Respect him, and most people in all fields agree or not, especially because they work very hard, many of them. So if you take the one, I just lost my train of thought, about honesty, right? So like my value is, honesty is always the best policy. Well, not really. There's a lot of good benefits with lying. A lot of pros can come from that. Like I say, when there's no such thing as 100% honesty. Even the people that say they're 100% honest are more than likely not 100% honest, because that's very, very unrealistic. You could strive for honesty and telling the truth, but if you have a belief of I must be honest all the time, you will hone in on when people are not honest, and you will hold conditional other acceptance on them and conditional self-acceptance. Why am I a liar? I'm an evil person. I'm terrible. But like guilt, when I hear people talk about from the sense of I deserve to be guilty, it's like, well, no, you don't deserve eternal mental punishment, but you might have done actions that you're going to have to apply unconditional self-acceptance. So remember, acceptance does not mean agreement. And just because you have atheistic principles doesn't, like I say, I could be completely wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm going to hell, right? By default, I would say I'm going to hell, or I'm going to walk the eternity or be walking aimlessly for existence, for eternity. So I have no idea, but I'm not scared of that. I would take it day by day if I had to, just the way it goes. So just because you don't believe in that doesn't mean you become some hedonistic maniac. That's the biggest myth out there, right? Some of the best action-based people I've ever met are hardcore agnostic atheists. One of the two, agnostic or atheist, or they kind of bounce back and forth. And some people who go to church and believe in good values, things happen in their life, they lose control and they kill their wife. It's just the way it goes. People do things for different reasons. Analyzing from a bird's eye view is very important for other acceptance, self-acceptance, and life acceptance. Thank you so much, guys. Remember, values aren't the problem, the rigidity of the values. You can reach us at that WhatsApp link down below, and hope to hear from you soon. And have a great conversation on the phone, and have a good one, everyone.